many of you are familiar with the golden rule? Treat people the way you want to be treated. Look at all these hands. I love it. How many of you remember when someone was kind to you? Put your hand up. 6 people have their hands up, friends. 6. That's where it all starts. That's the power of kindness. We are the ripple. It all starts with us. Yes, I believe that life is happening for us, not to us, and that each experience, each opportunity, each connection is teaching us something, should we choose to see it that way. And so I really want to say that I am so grateful for what you do every single day. See, strong people choose kindness because lifting others up takes courage and heart. I will tell you that if it was in those therapy sessions, it was in that employee assistance helpline that I found the science of kindness, where I found the power of kindness for myself and for other people. It is not a personality trait. Kindness is a choice you make every single day. Choosing to be kind, especially when it's tough, shows strength and character and purpose. It's oftentimes the people who show us the most unkind ways who need kindness the most. And I know it's tough, sometimes really tough, to dig down deep to keep demonstrating kindness when we've been treated poorly. Be kind to your mind. I say this all the time, especially as we're going as an educator throughout the school year. I challenge you this school year. Be kind to your mind. If you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. And I'll say it again. You are greater than great. You see, kids and individuals may not remember everything that you said to them, my friends, but they will remember you for your kindness. So may you navigate this school year where every student, every colleague, every individual remembers you for your kindness. If you can't find the light, be the light. And sometimes the light you're looking for is the one that you carry on the inside.
Hey everyone, I'm Shap. I am here with my good friend, amazing human being, Dr. Chris Culver. We are back for episode number 2. So if you missed our episode number 1, Chris and I, we talked about kindness. We got some really good feedback. And we said during our episode 1 that if we felt it was going to be something positive, we would try to make this a monthly series. So we are making it a monthly series because we think it's just a really positive thing. Before Chris and I got on, we just had this like amazing conversation. I said that as we were talking, I said, I don't know many people who are as grounded as you are and just the way you conduct yourself. And we were talking about like, okay, so what is the topic that we wanted to cover for this episode 2? And we decided to talk about mindset. And I know that's broad. It's like a broad topic, and it'll probably be something that we kind of delve into, and it will be something we delve into future episodes. But this one, from our conversation, we felt it would be a really good kind of segue. We were talking about kindness, now we're talking about mindset, and it's going to be very free-flowing. We're just going to kind of go back and forth, talk about different things. I think there's going to be incredible value in hearing what Chris has to say. I mean, I know just listening to him just now, it was incredibly valuable. So, how you doing there, Chris?
No, I'm doing great, and that was such a warm and kind introduction, so I appreciate you. But more importantly, I always enjoy sharing this space with you. So thank you for creating this space to talk about kindness and mindset, and I'm excited to dive into the conversation. One thing that stands out to me is I recognize in the first episode, we talked about kindness, and really, even though we're talking about mindset tonight, that's a form of self-kindness, right? Being kind to our mind, making sure that we're not being deterred by that inner voice that could be holding us back or restricting our beliefs or restricting our dreams or whatever they may be. So I'm excited. I'm excited to dive into this and have the conversation, much like we were having before this, that was emotional in some way, but also recharging and re-purifying, if you will.
It's funny. One of the questions I have for you is, you said be kind to your mind. So one of the questions I have, and I'll listen to you and then I'll chime in, is why do you think people aren't?
I think in my own personal experience, I think it stems back to just conditioning, right? I think back to my own childhood. I'm from a divorced family. If you look at an adverse childhood experience score assessment, an ACE score for those educators or non-educators, it's a 10-question assessment. They say if you have 4 or more yeses on that assessment, you've had a traumatic childhood. If you look at that assessment, I have 9 out of 10. And I don't say that for sympathy.
I share it simply out of solidarity that somebody who's listening, or even you as a former teacher, you know the struggles that come with that for a student. And I was probably the middle of the road child. Like, I did well at school. I wasn't really always in trouble. Sometimes I would have moments. So I say conditioning because there would be times, although my parents did the absolute best they could, there would be times in which my stepfather would say things under influence of alcohol or rage or anger, or all kind. Right? There's a lot of things there. So I'm naming that. That would say you're not going to amount to anything, that you're going to be a failure, you're going to be a screw up, all these things in the moment of distress. And as a young person um, who's not really unsure how to handle that or process those things, you internalize that. And not just internalize it in the aspect of whatever that task is that he was discussing, but really in the broad scheme of life, right? Like, I can't do this because he said this. And so when we think about that inner voice, it really starts at a young age, I believe, in my experience. And it's having to become kind to your mind, that if you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. And really knowing that we have to offer ourselves grace and compassion. Life is hard, life is messy. And so when those moments of distress come, or in those times in which we say, you suck, or you're rewrite that. And I know it's not as easy as today I'm going to do that. It's an ongoing process. And to be honest, I'm still doing it every day, right? But I think it really goes back to conditioning.
Yeah. And I was going to say that when people listen to this, one of the things that I would say is that, and it's funny, I'm wearing a Life is Good shirt. I love these shirts, and I have like 15 of them. I'm always wearing Life is Good shirts. I always wear them to work. But I also realize that it doesn't say life is perfect.
Mm.
It's like a really important thing to think about is when I think about like what Chris is saying, like why sometimes are we not kind to ourselves? Well, when we struggle or we've had things in our life, and for me, I was an only child. My parents were very, very loving and very caring, but both of my parents, were working. So a lot of times I'd have to fill the time myself, and I'd be with like a bunch of idiot friends, you know, who weren't the best influence on me. And it just ended up doing things that were foolish, and it would be easy to, you know, beat myself up over it because, oh my God, you're so stupid. And oh my God, why did you do that? Now, for me, I was fortunate because I was a rather confident young person. So that's not something that festered in my brain forever. It would come there and then sometimes it would go and come back or whatever it was. But you mentioned something that I think is critical. And I know this as a health teacher. When you have traumatic things happen in your life, this is for parents or people that have had it. When you have traumatic experiences, a divorce, a death in the family, um, abuse, some kind of loss of a family member or something, those kind of events, they get stuck in your brain and they can be very, very hard to get out. And you have to be able to, this is something I had said to Chris, you have to be able to train your brain to be able to, well, you don't have to be able to do it, but it's a good thing to try to think about, to try to rewire. And Chris said something about giving grace, which I think is really important. Is I know for me, when I think about some of the stuff I had when I was young, as a kid, and even older, I remember one incident where I had a situation happen. I came home and I was banging my head against the refrigerator because I was just really upset. It was just one of those moments.
Hard day.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, well, it wasn't a hard day. It was like a hard month, and I was like banging my head against the refrigerator. It was just tough, and ultimately, for me, I was fortunate enough to be able to shake myself out of that, to realize that, first of all, what had happened wasn't my fault, number one. And secondly, I wasn't going to let somebody else to define my life.
Mm.
So I say that to everybody when we talk about mindset, kindness, these concepts. Listening to Chris before came on, it is so critical that You don't let somebody else define you. It doesn't mean that you don't take feedback from people, because that can be incredibly critical for growth and development and just being a better person. But I'll give you an example. As Chris and I were talking, first of all, I trust him. I respect him, right? So when he says something to me, I'm going to take it in. You have to know who's giving you a piece of advice or who's talking to you, whether or not it's in your self-interest or their self-interest. So if I'm talking to Chris and he's talking to me, I know in my heart from knowing him that when he tells me something, he doesn't have an ulterior motive. He's not trying to get something out of it. So when we think about a mindset shift, we have to think about, first of all, how can we change our thinking? And if it's involving other people, do those other people have our best interests in their heart? That's not meant to be cynical. It's truthful. Do they have your best interest? And if they do, then maybe you have to give it a little bit more thinking of whether or not it's useful. But then, of course, if they don't, you have to be able to take a step back.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. I think we have to ask ourselves, are we trying to control other people? Because ultimately we can't do that. I can't control what you do or what you say, but I can tell you I respect you just as equally as you shared. I have mutual respect and trust with you. And I think about when we try to control other people, we get more frustrated. And I read a line today that kind of echoed what you shared that says, if you allow someone else to define your life, you're going to be more frustrated than ever before. And I think very much in line with what you're sharing. I think that whenever we try to control other people, we get frustrated, we get disappointed, we get let down. Same when we create a story in our head. And the only thing that we can control is our thoughts, our actions, and our intentions. And so in those moments of stress and chaos and frustration, because they're coming, right? That's life. They're coming.
Yeah.
They're coming.
Yes.
It's in those moments of that we choose kindness for ourselves, or like you said, train your brain, be kind to your mind. And what does that look like? What are those strategies? And I'll be vulnerable. Sometimes in those moments of distress, I have to pause and say, what are 3 good things right now? What are 3 good things that I can try to find right now, right? And if I can't, I wiggle my toes to get back to the present. And I don't share that as a silly strategy. I really do that because sometimes it's hard. Like life will throw a lemon at you and trying to make lemonade. And I'm really optimistic, not the toxic positivity, but truly trying to say, what is this teaching? What am I learning from this? How am I growing and evolving? Like you said, life's giving me that natural feedback. And I think back to the where does this stem from, right? And I shared the conditioning piece, but I think back to the first time you're ever rejected, whether that be you try out for a team, you try out for a part in a play, you try to a group of friends and they don't accept you, right? That first moment of rejection, that's where that internal trickster voice comes that says, you're not enough, you're not this, you're not that. And so I love the intentionality you say about training your brain to knowing that we all have value to this space. Every one of us is here for a unique reason. We all bring a gift to the world, and we just got to see it and believe it and give it and not be deterred by somebody else's inability to see our worth or somebody else to define our value. Because I think we ultimately will be frustrated. I know in my own experience, when I allowed other people to dictate my career or say yes or no to this, I was getting frustrated. And I had to step back and like, why am I allowing them to have that much power over me? I'm controlling my own thoughts, my own actions, and my own intentionality. I'm taking the power back, right? And when you do that, it does shift. But I'm going to say it again. I know I said it earlier. It's not an easy one and done thing. It's an ongoing process that you do every single day. It's just like if you train your body, you wouldn't get up one day, do weights, and you're Superman, right? You're going to have to do it every day, just like what you do with your brain. So finding gratitude, motivating yourself, high-fiving yourself, those small things that seem silly or trivial are those components of training your brain or being kind to your mind.
But it's funny too, Chris. One of the things I'm going to follow up what Chris said is that when Chris says like it's not a silly thing, I really want to emphasize that point, because many times in society, we tend to think like, well, patting yourself on the back, oh, that's so silly, or giving yourself praise. Oh my God, that's so silly. You're so insecure. That's so stupid. What do you mean? Like, it makes no sense. Like, if you do something well, own it. I always say that to people. And actually, for years, I was a coach. I still am, but years ago, I was coaching a girls cross country team, very successful group of athletes, very dedicated. And I'd always have some quotes. Always. It's just kind of my thing. I had a quote. And at the end of the season, we had a really successful season. At the banquet, the girls on the team got me a plaque. And the plaque was a quote that I had said so many times throughout the season. It's something that was hanging in my room for years. And the quote is, "Don't let anybody dictate your own level of greatness."
Love
And
that.
I would say that over and over again. As athletes, I would always say, "Don't let anybody else dictate your own level of greatness." And they would say, like, "What do you mean, Shap?" And I would say, "You are in control of how great you become.
Mhm.
You are. Nobody else. Yes, you will have outside influences, parents, friends, experience is in your life." Like Chris had a tough childhood. So that experience can stop you from being great because it's an experience over and over. But my follow up with that is it's not forcing it though. It doesn't force. It makes it more difficult. I want to be clear. We're not all dealt the same hand. It's very important to say that. And I want to make sure people understand that because some people honestly are more fortunate than others. It's just reality of life. There's 330 million people in America or whatever it is. We're not all dealt the same hand. But I always think about this. I was an only child. My parents weren't very wealthy. We weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy. I had a lot of good things and a lot of things that weren't good. It was my choice of the path to take. And sometimes it's another really important thing about mindset. And it's actually funny. Chris said, "Take the power back." By the way, that's a great song, by the way. "Take the Power Back." You have to look it up. It's an awesome song. There are going to be times when it comes to a mindset shift where you are doing some really good things. You're feeling good about yourself. You're making a lot of positive relationships. Things are going well. You're on this path and you're like, "Man, this is great." And then for whatever reason, at somewhere along that path, the road shifts. And now it becomes a rocky road. And you're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And it is easy to let that rocky road keep going. But it is also just as important to remember that you were on a really good road. Because as human beings, and I know this all the time, I see it, I call it the 9-10 rule. Have you ever heard that?
I haven't. No.
9-10 rule. It's pretty simple for everybody. I want everybody to think about this. So if you think about a typical week or typical, let's say 10 days. Well, actually, we'll use 10 days because it'll be easy to understand. So during those 10 days, day one comes and it's a decent day. Nothing crazy, but decent day. Day two comes and it's good, next. So we fast forward and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you get to the 10th day. And something happens, man. It just throws you through a loop. And then somebody says, "Man, how's everything going?" What's the first thing you say?
You're going to be
Oh,
focused on the negative of the 10th day.
right. "Oh my God, I can't believe this." Well, hold on. You had 9 days. You had 9 days before this where things were, and here's the tricky part. When it comes to mindset, people need to understand that it's not like the glass is always full. It's not for anybody. Nobody lives that life. But you have to understand the difference between not completely full, but mostly full.
Mhm.
And I know it's a cliche because we've always talked about glass half full and all that stuff, but that really is critical when you think about it. If most of the time your glass is mostly full, and then this one day or this one moment, stuff happens and the glass is just about empty, but it's empty for that moment. It wasn't empty for the 9 days prior, it was mostly full. You have to be able to separate a glass that is almost always empty and a glass that is almost always full. Now, if your glass is almost always empty, that is another issue which I think Chris and I could talk about. Like, that's a more difficult one. If you're always struggling and your mindset is always not in a good place, that can be tricky. And it also reminds me, I love how Chris said the word trickster. I believe that our brains are tricksters. They are. For me, I have no problem saying this. I am very blessed in this way. I tend to believe that good things are going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to really believe that. When I'll give people a perfect example. So I'm a personal trainer. I recently just started a different job, and when I interviewed for the job, the interview went really well. And the person was really happy. Shap, we'd love to have you. But then the process to starting was kind of like a little rocky. And it would have been easy for me to be like, oh man, what happened? Oh, maybe it's not going to work. If that's you, your brain's tricking you. It's tricking you to think that it won't work when maybe it will. And if it doesn't work, it's not because your brain's tricking you, it's because it just didn't work.
Yeah. And I think the piece that you highlight the most is, I go back to where you were talking about being proud of yourself, right? We have to be proud of ourselves. And that's, I think, the piece of where we start with our mind. And oftentimes we're buried in that not being proud of ourselves. And I read a line not too long ago that says, yes, it's powerful when someone else is proud of you, but it's most powerful when you're proud of yourself. And I think it's so true. But there's that fine line between confident and cocky, right? And I think that fine line lends itself through compassion. And I think when we're compassionate to ourselves, we have grace, we have understanding. Like you said, if we're looking at it those 9 days saying this is what's all been bad, but really it's all been good, where can we retrain or condition our mind to have more compassion, to have more grace? And I loved what you said about not having being all dealt the same cards. I say that all the time. It's not the cards that we're dealt, but it's what we do with them. Mm-hmm. If I would have been deterred by some of the life challenges that I navigated at a young age because whatever, then I don't know that I'd be here today. But I will say that in my moments of life, I thought that was normal. And it's not until I became an adult of doing research of human development or taking an education class or teaching this that I was like, wait, this isn't normal. Like, this was not a normal experience. And so I share that vulnerably because I know some people are sitting in the space listening like, well, this is normal, right? This is my experience, or this is my upbringing. And just because that may be what we have normalized doesn't mean that it's normal or what's best for everyone. And so I say it like, we got to love ourselves first so that we can be the most loving individuals out there. We have to be the light for ourselves so we can be the light. And it's hard. It's hard. And so in those moments of hardship, in those times where the negative thoughts come, we have to ask ourselves, are what we telling ourselves true? Is it true? Are we telling ourselves aspects of the truth that we can discern? Or is it opinion or something that we have exaggerated to make ourselves feel safe, to put that guard up, to not operate in fear? Fear is really a deterrent to our success, but if we use it correctly, it can motivate us, right? It can really push us to do something different, to take that control back. And that's where we have to think about in our mindset. What we do control is this truthful? Is this holding me back? Is this really safeguarding me? Or what does that do? And I think about so many individuals who don't pursue their dreams or aspirations because they're held back after the first try. I will be uber vulnerable and share. I interviewed for my first administrative position 14 times. 14 times, right? And I was exhausted. And I don't say that for any other reason. I really believe that where we land is where we're meant to be. And I did not see that after every interview. But when I landed where I landed, I worked with a crazy principal. But if I wouldn't have worked there, I don't know that I would have gotten my doctorate. I don't know that I would have found the science of it. I mean, I don't know that some of these things would have happened the way they have in my life. And so then in the moment, I was frustrated. I was beat down. I'm like, I suck at this. I can't do this. I'm a failure, right? All these things. But I'd get back up, dust my boots off, and go try it again. And eventually, like Jim Collins says, the flywheel effect, it's going to happen with enough momentum. When you believe in yourself, when you believe good things are going to happen to you because you're worthy of them, it's going to happen. But you have to ask yourself, what are you telling yourself during that process? Are you holding yourself back? Are you telling yourself the truth? Or are you really just exaggerating an opinion or this safeguard story to keep yourself from trying, from facing rejection and failure again?
It's like the mouse wheel.
Yeah.
Like the mouse wheel. I always say that if you keep doing the same thing over and over and, expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity.
Yes.
And there's some cliches that I think are honestly stupid, but I don't think that's one. I think that saying is actually very true, is if something's not working, then if you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, you have to change something. So like you had 14 interviews, right?
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that you did some different things during those interviews. You didn't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. You just didn't quit.
Yeah, I had to keep seeking feedback, like you said at the very beginning, right? Like I would email them and say what worked, what didn't work, right?
Yep.
And oftentimes I'll be vulnerable and share they already had an internal candidate that I was number 2, right? If they didn't have an internal person, I would be that person. But it didn't mean that I didn't seek the feedback. It didn't mean that I didn't apply the feedback, right? I think if I wouldn't have sought the feedback, or like you said, quit, I wouldn't have had those experiences. And how many of us quit before we get the experience?
So I want to, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm curious to see what you're going to say here. This is kind of like, I didn't tell Chris I was going to ask him this, but I'm going to ask him because he's got me thinking about something, which I want everybody watching who sees this at some point to do this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in yourself most of the time?
I love this question. And when I was on the very first episode of this show with you, you asked me this, and I think I scored myself a 7 or an 8. And then you asked me the same about yourself. And I've always held on to that. And so today I can say I'm probably at a 9 or a 9.5.
Okay. So now, when you think about where you were at different points of your life, let's say before you became who you are now, where were you?
Oh, a solid 4, 3.5, 4.
Right. So the reason I asked that question is when it comes to mindset, I'm going to say something that I believe in my heart. It is possible to change.
Mhm.
It is. Again, for some people, it is harder than others because of, and I made a list of this, and I'm sorry for looking at it, but I just wanted to make sure I get it right because of our history, our background, our genetics, our surroundings, and our experiences. All of those things matter greatly, but they don't define us. It can be more daunting depending on the things that I mentioned, but it doesn't define us. And when I hear a friend of mine, somebody I respect, a co-host, talk about his confidence being a 9, when at some point it was a 4, that is the stuff, the mindset shift that we're talking about over and over again. Is it is possible to do that. Not always easy, but it is possible. And Chris also mentioned something that I want to make sure I touch on before we start getting close to wrapping it up, is he mentioned about saying 3 good things about himself. I always can't understand why people don't do that. It's a struggle for me. I don't really understand it. And if you want to put a comment in or ask one of us a question of why you don't do it or why you do it, that would be wonderful. I'm not talking about, so I believe, Chris, you said cocky and confident.
I did, yeah.
I always say to students, to people I train, is there is a huge difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogance is when everybody else knows you think you're good. Confidence is when you do. And that is something that I always believe. There is nothing inherently wrong with believing in yourself. There's nothing wrong with having a positive mindset. There's nothing wrong with believing you're a good person, a good boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, husband. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. that should be something that's positive and uplifting, not something that that you feel bad about, you know? And when it comes to changing your mindset, and obviously we're going to have to talk a lot more about this. I mean, this half hour is like just it's flown by. It's just unbelievable how fast it's gone. And we'll pick back up on some of this stuff. Obviously, hopefully we'll get some feedback and we can kind of touch on it. But you really need to just kind of step back and realize again that our mindset, how we think about things, is something that we can control. Not always easy, but something that we can do. Chris, what do you think? Is there a few things? Why don't you touch on a few really important things that you think are important before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to echo your sentiment about the mindset being trained. I mean, our brains are, the neuroscience has proven that our brains can be restructured, rewired. Even if they are in a negative or a pessimistic state, we can use and apply strategies and do things in our life that will help us get out of there to have a more confident, more compassionate, loving mindset for ourselves and to be the ripple out into the world. And I think one of the things that you touched on being a physical trainer is our own well-being, right? Our own health. We are what we consume, whether that be food, whether that be drinks, whether that be content, whether that be people, energy, whatever. And the people that you surround yourselves with and the energy you surround yourself with ultimately impact who you are. And so I know in a world in which we live in FOMO, or fear of missing out,
Yeah.
we want to be mindful. And especially myself, and I know the energy bus highlights this, but are the people we surrounding ourselves with, are they filling us up? Or are they energy vampires, right? Are they giving us love and light, or are they draining us? And when we think about that, that's a first step we can take to be kind to our mind, to say, I want to be around people who are going to be positive, who are going to be the energy that I'm looking for, who are going to build me up and celebrate me, who aren't going to tear me down. And when we do that, that's where we start to shift. And I think the biggest piece too, in a world that's consumed of content and entertainment at all the time, are we pausing anytime during the day to reflect, right? Just to pause and say, wow, today offered all of this greatness, even if it was just the sun shining, even if it was the grass coming out of the ground, even if it was not the rainy day, right? I have a washing machine that's given me the fits for 3 days, and I've been chat GPTing it to solve all the problems. But today the repairman came out, and it's going to be quite a debacle. But I could be frustrated and down in the dumps, or it could be way worse, right? It's how we respond to those things. So for anyone listening, I always challenge you to say, when you wake up every single day, that you are greater than great. And if you don't believe it, you got to tell yourself that, because every day may not be a great day, but there's something great in every single day. And sometimes you are that great thing. And that's okay to celebrate that. And you should celebrate it. And as you go throughout your day, affirm yourself. Remember that you are a kind person, you're caring, and you're compassionate. If you're having a hard time with your mindset, one thing that I would challenge you to do, and this is harder than it sounds, it's going to be way harder than it sounds, drive your car with no music and be with your thoughts. I've been doing that since the start of January of 2025. And it's getting easier, but it's not easy every day, because you're sitting there with those thoughts and you have to process them. But that's where I really go back to the conversation we were having earlier. Are the thoughts I'm telling myself truthful? Are they helping me be the best version of myself? Am I being kind to my mind, or using your lingo? Am I training my brain to see the good in what's happening right now? And when we're sitting in silence, we're sitting in our car, we're doing that. It's not easy, but we are able to process that a little bit easier without any distractions, without any of those things that are coming at us. So if you haven't heard it today, I really want you to hear from my heart. We love you. We're grateful for you. You're exactly what this world needs. Be kind to your mind.
Oh boy. I was going to ask Chris to finish I was going to ask him to finish with something, but he just did it. I don't have anything else to add. We got to finish on that note. Everybody, first of all, thank you again for all that you do. Chris and I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful for Chris, because I love being able to do a monthly episode with somebody where I leave feeling inspired.
I echo you. I love it. I'm pumped up after this conversation.
I walk away and I say, Chris is 35, right? Yeah, and I'm 60. So we have a pretty big age difference, but both of us love talking about stuff that's to make the world a better place. Again, please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. All you're doing is clicking a button. It's free. There's a lot of good content about wellness, education, a whole bunch of different topics. Obviously, Chris and we're going to be on every month covering new things. I'll have Chris's contact information for you to get in contact with him if you'd like. The same thing with me. You'll be able to reach me if you like. We will be back next month. I don't know the topic, but I'm sure it'll be something exciting. We appreciate you. Thank you again for all you do. You're awesome.